The reviews are going to the dogs. Or wolves, rather. In the ongoing discussion of the home video releases of the classic Universal monster films of the 1930s and 1940s, we will now shift our focus to the films that introduced arguably the most popular Universal monster of the 1940s, as well as the role that made Lon Chaney Jr., son of the late great Lon Chaney Sr., an icon of the horror genre. The Wolfman. Up for discussion will be the home video releases of the original 1941 film, as well as its sequels, which also served as crossover sequels to other Universal monster properties: Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, produced in 1943, House of Frankenstein, produced in 1944, and House of Dracula, produced in 1945. The final film, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which also was a crossover sequel produced in 1948, will be discussed in a future video. We will also focus on the home video releases of two other classic-era werewolf-themed films produced by Universal: Werewolf of London, produced in 1935, and She-Wolf of London, produced in 1946. And yes, the bulk of the discussion will refer to the US and Canada VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray releases. Beginning with the VHS releases, the original Wolfman film was first released to VHS in 1987 by MCA Home Video as a Critics' Choice selection by film critic Gene Shalit. This edition was later repackaged in 1990 without the Gene Shalit tie-in by MCA Universal. The film was next included in MCA Universal's Universal Monsters Classic Collection VHS series in 1991. This is another one of those covers that used to confuse me a lot as a kid. Why is the Wolfman depicted twice here on the cover? I thought the idea of these covers was to either recreate a scene from the film, or at least recreate a scenario that fits the idea of the film. What's the message here? The Wolfman fights himself? Actually, that might be a little more symbolic than I'm willing to talk about. The final VHS release of the Wolfman was in 1999 as part of the Classic Monster Collection. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman was first released to VHS in 1986 by MCA Home Video, and it was later repackaged in 1990 by MCA Universal. The final VHS release of the film was in 1992 as part of the Universal Monsters Classic Collection. Additionally, the Classic Collection also marked the only VHS releases of Werewolf of London, House of Frankenstein, and House of Dracula. Here's yet another display of the Wolfman appearing twice on one cover, with him in his werewolf form there on the far left, and him in his human form there on the far right. I mean, wouldn't it have made more sense to maybe have Frankenstein's monster on the cover? He's in the movie. Sure, he doesn't do much until the end, but still. But then again, they didn't have Dracula on the House of Frankenstein cover either. She-Wolf of London had its only VHS release in 1998 as part of the Universal Horror Classics collection. Skipping over to the DVD releases, The Wolfman made its DVD debut in 1999 as part of the Classic Monster Collection, and had a pretty good selection of extras considering the time of its release. This same DVD would be repackaged in later years, including this 2012 4-pack DVD set and this solo release from 2014. Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman and House of Frankenstein, as well as Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London, made their DVD debuts in 2001 as double feature sets. One quick thing to note, however, is that in House of Frankenstein, there is a glitch where a shot of Carl trying to catch up to Inspector Arns and his men repeats itself. Moving forward to 2004, Universal again began reissuing their classic monster films on DVD, this time as legacy sets, as a tie-in to the release of the film Van Helsing. The Wolfman set included not only the original film, but also featured Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Werewolf of London, and She-Wolf of London, while House of Frankenstein was included in the Frankenstein set, and House of Dracula would make its DVD debut as part of the Dracula set. The release utilized more or less the same transfers and features as the earlier DVD releases, with some minor framing changes to Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London, and additionally, the glitch in House of Frankenstein is still present. To tie in with the release of the Wolfman remake in 2010, Universal released a 2-disc set of the original film, including a new remastered transfer, as well as a mixture of extras old and new, including a new retrospective on actor Lon Chaney Jr. This edition actually went through 2 earlier cover attempts before the final release, beginning with this cover that used an image of Chaney as the Wolfman from Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, followed after by this cover that used an image from Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Fortunately, for the final cover, they used an image of Chaney from the original 1941 film. The Wolfman was first released to Blu-ray in 2012 as part of the Classic Monsters Essential Collection, the disc of which would be repackaged a few times over the next few years with different covers, and was later included in the 2016 Wolfman Legacy set, but more on that later. In 2014, Universal again re-released their Universal Monster films on DVD as legacy sets, but this time they were pressed on single-sided DVD 9 discs, instead of the problematic DVD 18 discs of the 2004 releases, as well as including for the first time the Abbott and Costello crossover films. The Wolfman set included the same films as the 2004 set, but also included House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Additionally, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein were included in the Frankenstein set as well, with the latter three also appearing in the Dracula set. Yes, you heard me correctly. 3 of the same films appear in 3 of the 2014 DVD sets, with another film also appearing in 2 of those sets. But anyways, with the exception of the Wolfman and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which now have transfers that are sourced from the 2012 Blu-rays, the remaining films, however, still use the same transfers as the previous DVD release. On a better note, though, Universal did finally fix the glitch that was on the last 2 DVD releases of House of Frankenstein. The format of the 2014 DVD sets, including film duplication, was further continued with the subsequent Blu-ray sets, with the Wolfman set featuring the same films being released in 2016. With the exception of the Wolfman and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which used the same 2012 Blu-ray discs, the remaining crossover films are sourced from brand new HD restorations made for the release. Werewolf of London and She-Wolf of London, on the other hand, are sourced from older HD masters with some enhancements. Additionally, some fans have also noted an odd drop in volume during the last 20 minutes or so of Werewolf of London. The Wolfman Blu-ray set was later included with the other Universal Monster Blu-ray sets in a 30-film box set released in 2018. And that wraps up this episode. Only a few more left of these before the end of October, but there is more to discuss. Please continue to like and subscribe, and as always, have a spooktacular day.